Yeah. It was nice. It was nice as long as it lasted. It was always a lot of fun. I never did it because I was hoping for anything. Well, no, that's not true. You always do something because you're hoping for something. I was hoping for more responses, for a bigger audience because of more interactions with them. That's what I was hoping for. More interaction. Monetary gain, maybe whatever I put in it to get back out. But any hobby you don't do a hobby because you hope you make money. That's what your job's for. But yeah, even after I lost monetization, I wanted to keep going. But it's clear to me now that I'm eluding myself. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for tuning back in to what may very well be my last YouTube video ever. But in the past few days, a lot of things have changed for me. Let's go back to what happened before the pandemic. Oh my God, she's going back that far. No way. Don't let her go that back. Yeah, well, whatever. No, let's go back further. Let's go back even further. Let's go back to when I was a kid. I always had a camera. Oh man, I always took pictures. And eventually, point and shoots were not good enough anymore. So when I became a young adult, I got myself my first reflex camera, an SLR without the D because it was just film, with some lenses that were back in the day already super expensive. I'm seeing compared to today, I probably spent $3,000 on one lens because I had an income and I had a hobby. So I just full steam ahead. And then I moved to Canada in 1999 and I came here with 2 suitcases. There was sure as hell not enough room for some big camera gear. So I sold it all off back in Italy. I sold everything before coming here and I missed it. I wanted a camera again, so I got myself another point and shoot just because I needed to document my life here in Canada for the cheap. Then I remember still to this day seeing the first commercial for a digital camera on TV. And it was a Kodak commercial, and it was a man who went back to Italy, pun, to take pictures of where his grandmother used to live. And back in the day, you take pictures, you fill the roll of film finally. Some people, it took them years to fill one roll of film. But anyway, you fill a roll of film and then you give it to the development company and they develop it and you get it back a few days later. So from the moment you take the picture to the moment you actually get the picture back, there's a lot of time. It can be lots of time that goes by. And then you would see if the pictures are good or not. Kodak sold this camera that was still a film camera, but it had a tiny little memory in it and a screen. And so you took the picture on film, but also as a digital picture. So right after you take the picture, you can verify that what you took, it's in focus, it's good, you have everything that you need. And then if you take a next picture, it erases in the digital file, it erases the previous picture because you just need it to verify, but it will still be on film. And I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. For somebody who had spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on developing film that was all but one picture per roll was like crap, for me that was like, wow. I mean, again, it doesn't give you the opportunity to go back and say, oh, this picture was BS. I'd erase it. So that film, that piece of roll of film was already covered. So, but it gave you the opportunity to take another one. Anyway, loved the idea. Too expensive for I couldn't afford it. And then I got pregnant in 2001. And just before my son was born in 2002, just a month or so ahead, my husband gave me a digital camera, a Canon point and shoot. A something. This silver boxy thing, point and shoot, digital. Loved it. And then from there it went on. So now I'm back onto the picture train. And I was quite happy with the Canon point and shoots. I think I got a Panasonic waterproof point and shoot. Just point and shoots were fine. Take a picture, you look at the screen, yeah, it's good. And then a friend of mine, my neighbor, he showed me his Pentax DSLR. And all those memories came flooding back to me about my previous hobby. That big black boxy camera with those lenses that you could remove and put back on and create this amazing background blur, that bokeh. It brought back that desire to go back into serious photography. So at that point, I had a good job. I went out and got myself a Nikon DSLR. And don't ask me what my first Nikon DSLR was, but I do know that my second one was a D90 with a bunch of lenses. And I particularly remember my 60 millimeter f 2.8 macro lens. I think it may have been my favorite lens I've ever owned. And I went and took crazy pictures from everything, droplets. I had these contraptions. I was taking pictures of droplets hitting the water and then coloring them in different colors. And it's just like pictures after pictures of flower macros and bug macros. Pictures nobody cares about but me. I wasn't selling them. I wasn't printing them. I wasn't giving them to anybody. I wasn't even making a greeting card out of them. I was just taking pictures for the heck of taking pictures. But I had a ball. And of course I took pictures of my family, but that was always kind of in the background. The documenting of my life was always in the background. So everywhere I went, I took this big camera with me and a bunch of lenses. And I remember going to Disneyland. What was that? 2010. We went to Disneyland with this big camera on my neck. And I hated it. And okay, Disneyland is a stress test. If you cannot survive with your camera through Disneyland, you shouldn't have that camera. And that's like, because it's too heavy. And I came home and I thought, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be a pack camel for the rest of my life, needing to bring this camera gear with me everywhere I go. It's just too much. Change lenses. They don't gonna wait for you to change lenses. It's like, no, this is BS. There has to be a better solution. Because I'm a tech blog reader, I read tech blogs, photographic blogs, lots of photo websites. I read all these things all the time, every day. I saw an article about Fujifilm. Okay, before I'm saying that, I need to say that my friend at the time had a Fujifilm point and shoot. And their sensors are different from the regular sensors. Every pixel had a hexagonal shape. And although her camera was not as good as mine, her pictures always looked better than mine. And I'm like, why? Fuji was already in the back of my mind. They know what they're doing. So when I read this article about Fuji launching this camera called X100, that was a camera that looked like the camera my dad used to own. It kind of looked like a miniature Leica, a mixture because between the Minolta that my dad used to own and a Leica, and it was small. And it had an APS-C sensor, the same sensor I had in my D90, and my ears went like, that sounds amazing. It's not, it's a point and shoot, but it's not. Maybe I can achieve the same kind of quality background blur, whatever, with this camera without having to lug lenses around with me, worry about dust in my sensors, having a huge camera bag. Like, maybe that's the camera for me. And I remember I looked on the website back in the day. It was Future Shop in Canada. That shows you how old I am. They had one in stock downtown Vancouver, and I called them and I said, put it away from me. I'll pick that up. And I picked it up literally, I think it was the week of the launch. I was one of the first people in this area to have this camera. I remember it made quite a splash back then. I walked around with this camera hanging around my neck and people kept on stopping me. What is that? I took a lot of pictures with this camera. I parked my D90, I parked my Nikon and all my lenses, and I started taking pictures of that. And I finally felt like, I don't know if you ever have been in a position where you're taking a lot of pictures for your family, for vacations. You're always the one taking pictures. You're always detached from the action. You're somewhere else. Even if you take pictures with your phone, sometimes this happens. You're not in the happening. You're recording the happening from outside. So you're never really part of the action. You're always standing back. Those are the actors, but you're just a cameraman, man. Pleasure, memory, whatever. You're taking pictures because you kind of have to, and you feel detached from the action. And having a big camera with a long lens, it almost takes you even further away from that action, especially if it's a long lens and you have to kind of stand further away to get everybody in. You know what I mean? With this Fuji X100, that distance, maybe because the body's with the lens is only this wide, it felt like I wasn't excluded anymore. The other thing that I noticed is when I pointed the camera, like the Nikon, the DSLR, not even a huge camera, but a Nikon with a black lens, if I pointed that camera into the face of especially my elderly parents, they would recoil and say, "Take that thing away from me." And I remember going with this camera for the first time to Germany, and my parents didn't even say anything to me. I took picture after picture and they didn't even notice. And this is some of the things that I noticed from using the Fuji X100. But after a little while, that longing came back, that longing to be able to take macro photography, which was a big hobby of mine. Take more pictures further away. Now my son was playing soccer, and so wanting to have more interchangeable lens options to do more things with my camera came back. I didn't want to go back to Nikon. I didn't want to go back to big cameras and big lenses. I wanted to stay within that small camera mirrorless thing happening there with Fuji. So Fuji brought out the EX1 with a bunch of little lenses, and I was on board. I sold my X100 back to the camera store and picked up an XE1 with a couple of lenses. I got the 60mm macro. That's only after I realized it's a 1:2 ratio, a 1:2 magnification, and not a 1:1 magnification. If you buy a macro lens, don't go for this anything but 1:1 because it's not worth it. I got a 35mm. I got a 14mm. It was great. I just loved it. Now you're starting to get a little bit bigger again. You got the 56mm f1.2 because you want that blurry background on your portrait lens. And then I got the XT1, and then I got the XT2, and I got the XT3. Wait, did I get the XT3? I don't know. It's just all these XTs are a blur. And gradually the cameras get bigger and the lenses got bigger, and now the lenses are waterproof and they got bigger again. And I'm like, what am I doing? That's not what I wanted. I wanted to be taking pictures for the fun of it and be included in the action. I want to take pictures because I enjoy taking pictures, not because I feel I have to. So when the X100V came out in March of 2020, I put down my money for a pre-order and I got the first one that was shipped to that particular store in Langley, the Kerrisdale Hammer or whatever it was called. And that was just before the pandemic hit. And now I had this camera. I still had my XT2 or whatever it was. And I was using the XT2 to take videos because I was already doing the YouTube channel and didn't have a flip out screen, so I had to have a monitor mounted underneath and plug in a microphone left, right, and center. And it was 1080p and it was great. And then And I'm thinking, no, I don't want two cameras. I want one camera. Let's see if the X100V can do my YouTube channel. And it could. It was great. I got the wide angle adapter on top of it. I was filming and it was great. And then sometime last year, 2023, after owning this camera for 3 years and being super happy with it. Okay, let's backtrack for a second. No, I wasn't super happy with it because the focus was not always focusing. There was a lot of pictures that were not fantastic, but there was also a lot of pictures that were just absolutely beautiful, and I didn't have to do anything. I just point this camera and take this picture, and suddenly you have this stupid things like glasses on top of a table, and it gave me some feeling, and I didn't want to delete them, although it didn't mean anything to me personally. I just wanted to keep these pictures because I loved them. That's what that camera can do. But filming YouTube videos at 4K, which the camera was capable of doing, that brought the camera to its knees. After 7-8 minutes filming, the camera would shut down and overheat. No, 4K wasn't an option for the 100V. Now I'm thinking, all right, Karen, you want just one camera that does it all. Obviously, the X100V is not that camera. You want to take pictures and you want to do videos. You have to look elsewhere. Any other of those YouTubers that I watched, they were all talking about Sony cameras, how great Sony cameras are, what fantastic Sony cameras are. So I got myself a ZV-E10, a Sony ZV-E10 with a 15mm f1.4 lens, and suddenly filming wasn't a chore anymore. You put that on a tripod. You don't need anything else. You don't need a cable for the microphone. You don't need an extra monitor. You flip out the thing and you plug in the microphone on the top with a cable and you start filming and it doesn't miss a beat. The colors were wonky though. That was my main concern. The colors out of the ZV-10, it said ZV-E10. Oh my God, I forgot these camera names. They were like questionable. I had a really hard time being happy with these colors. But I said, you know what? You can power through as long as the focus is correct. The colors you can adjust later in post. And now we're getting to the point where I didn't want to be to begin with messing with video footage in post. But again, I still hung on to my X100V because for taking pictures, I loved it. But then I took that ZV-E10 on a photo walk, took some pictures, and it was hard. It was just hard. I wouldn't be able to see anything. Just holding that screen out and taking pictures like an idiot. You need a viewfinder for photography. Everything else is crap. Don't let anybody tell you that viewfinders are option. No, they're not. You need it, especially when you go hiking in the sun. You don't see your screen. You don't see what you're doing. But I came home with some cracking shots. Sharp, in focus. The dynamic range out of this world. And the camera was tiny. I'm like, this may be my camera. But that viewfinder is really... So then the A6700 was announced. Similar camera to that ZV-E10, but with a viewfinder. I pre-ordered the Sony 6700 and I waited quite a bit before I finally got my hands on it. In the meantime, in order to afford that camera, I sold my X100V. After 3 years, 3 years and 2 months, in May of 2023, I sold it. Didn't regret it at the beginning, but there was 2 major problems with the Sony cameras. The first one was the colors, and though the A6700 still has way better colors than the ZV-E10, it was lifeless. I don't know how to describe it. That was one problem. The colors I just couldn't get friends with. And the second problem was that body with all these buttons and dials and yet nothing ever worked the way I wanted it. So backtrack again to my Nikon days. I had the Nikon most of the time on auto. Yeah, I admit it. Sometimes I would dabble with aperture, but that was it. I didn't know what I was doing. I got the Fuji. And now I'm wondering, when I do this, closing the aperture, now I have to increase my shutter speed because less light comes into the lens. So I have to leave it open for longer? Oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. But if I close my aperture, my background blur is gone. So, and if I want background blur and it's really sunny outside, I have to put my N filter and D filter. I literally taught myself how to use shutter speed, aperture, filters, everything. And everything I learned about photography, I learned from the X100V. That's what that camera did to me. So that Sony camera, great camera, man, great camera. Lots of front dials, rear dials, but none of the dials stay where they are. So you give them a function and then you rotate them and you have to verify on the screen before you, because some of the dials, even though I tried to set them several times, the front dial only does the aperture and the back dial only does the exposure compensation. But then I touch it and then I put another and suddenly it changes it. I'm like, what? I don't know. It just didn't work for me. Maybe I was expecting too much. Maybe I should have had a mind shift, 180-degree mind shift, that now the camera was doing the thinking. Even the focusing. The camera's so smart, it can focus. No, I want you to focus on this particular, yes, my eye, fine, focus on my eye. But when I'm behind the camera, I want you to focus on what I want you to focus on. That struggle, that fight with this camera every time, and then there's no joystick on it. So now you have to like, use the touchscreen. Touchscreen is so great. Touchscreens suck. When you're having the camera move to your eye, how do you put the focus point on the touchscreen? I know you have to use the directional pad, but first you have to select the fact that you get, oh my God. A few times I wanted to throw that camera against the wall. It's a $2,000 camera. I don't want to throw it against the wall. Bought way too many lenses that I didn't need. Way too many accessories that nobody cares about. Because I wanted to make that camera my own. But every once in a while, I went back to Fuji Rumors, checked out what they're doing. What are they doing over at the Fuji camp? I tried to convince myself that Fuji cameras are not for me. They have now grown way bigger than they ever been. The lenses are more expensive. The lenses are huge. And no, but I still read what was going on. So when the X106 V1, or whatever you want to call it, was announced, I was all over it. Oh yeah, this is a great camera. But no, I want a camera that I can do everything with. YouTube videos, vlogging, and pictures. I have to stick with the A6700. Almost a year now I've had a Sony camera with a flip out screen. Do you know how many times I filmed myself walking with the camera held in front of me, filming myself? 0 times. Because that's not who I am. I'm trying to be something that I'm not. But I need to have the camera that can do everything. Yeah, and the digital stabilization has to be fantastic because, God forbid, I'm going to be walking and talking and I need to have that wide angle lens because I don't want to have a long stick. No. And I took a lot of pictures with the Sony camera. I took a lot of pictures and there was a few good ones, but most of them were just, there was no life in them. There was no wow factor. Can I be a person that has 2 cameras? First of all, I don't have the budget for that. And secondly, that's not what we want to do. We want that one horse that does everything. I watched every YouTube video about the X106. Everything. In English, Italian, and German. Everything. I can tell you everything about this camera. And I resisted. I resisted pre-ordering it because I said, no, this is not what you want. You want to do YouTube videos. And you cannot do YouTube videos with the X106. And then on the weekend, I sat myself down and I was wondering about, where am I going in my life? Is filming these YouTube videos still what I want to do? Is that really a priority? And I had to have a really hard look at me and my channel and what I've done. And I had to say no. As much as I love my YouTube channel, it's so much energy, effort, and time wasted on really nothing. I know a few of you watch every video I do, and I'm eternally grateful to it. But there's no value in what I give you. I have nothing to contribute. I have to be real. So, considering this and considering how little joy a $2,000 camera is giving me right now, to the point where I'm not even taking it with me anymore. I had to do the only thing that I had to do. I had to pre-order that X106. I put in a pre-order. I paid the whole thing in full. That's how much I pre-ordered it. It's already paid for. I called in the company. I said, if I pre-order it, do you take my money already or only when you ship? No, we want the money now because we're going to have to buy this camera. And I'm like, okay. So they gave me a date of March 18th of 2024 that I should have that camera or it should be shipped to me. I don't know. I don't know. And I literally said, okay, here's the money. If I don't have a camera by the end of March, I'm going to cancel the pre-order and I stay with what I have. Although this is not what I want. What I want is to sell everything and go back to Fuji. And in order to go back to Fuji, to the camera I really want that stole my heart 15 years ago, 14 years ago, I have to quit this YouTube channel. So that's why I'm thinking I'm going to shut this down. My YouTube channel is pointless. It doesn't give me a lot of pleasure anymore. And so this is the end. No, I'm not a sucker for the hype because I owned the camera before that. I know what it can do. And it deserves every little bit of praise it gets. Every little bit. No, your cat's not going to be in focus 100% of the time. It's going to be in focus 75% of the time. That's good enough. It's a digital camera for all that. You can't delete the non-keeper. There's a YouTube channel that's called Camera Conspiracy. And all they ever look for are the perfect camera. And I found mine. I just didn't know it. Now I know. Listen to me again in 3 years from now. If I get the Fuji and then I'm going to maybe want to throw that out the window and say, oh my God, it's the worst camera ever. It burns my hand. It's so slow. It doesn't focus. I wish I had my Sony back. Don't think so. I will go back into being in the moment, taking pictures more than filming. Maybe I'm going to shut down my YouTube channel and I'm starting up a blog again. Maybe writing is my thing. Writing and photos. I don't know. Let's wait and see until March 18th comes around. And I promise, I know I said I'm shutting this down. I promise I'm going to film another video at least to let you know what's happening because I owe you that much. Man, that Fuji camera, it really did steal my heart. And I'm sorry to say, Sony, but you lost. That's it for today. Maybe forever. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching in the past so many years. And if there is another video, I hope I will see you again in that new video. Bye.